So today, I thought that we should talk about something that not nearly enough people are discussing. So I recently read Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, and at first I thought it was actually pretty good. I thought, the writing, very well done, the research that had to go into this book, and making it actually feel as historically accurate as possible, very, very well done. And the development of the plot and the characters was more of a slow build, and it made it seem so much more realistic, and it didn't use the cop-out of the love at first sight trope, which I think at this point we all despise. Yes, no, please tell me I'm not the only one. But there were an awful lot of problems with this book that I'm going to talk about today. As a quick little warning, I did want to say that there will be spoilers in this movie. What? There will be spoilers in this video for the first book here and for the first season of Outlander as well, because I wanted to kind of compare and contrast them, because I actually really like the television show Outlander that is based off of the series. But yeah, I DNF'd this first book. I will not be continuing on, and I wanted to explain why. So as a quick little intro to anybody that is unfamiliar with this particular story, basically Claire is from the 1940s, and she, while on vacation with her husband in Scotland, through a series of events, accidentally travels back in time to the 1740s, where she meets James Fraser and ends up marrying him and falling in love with him in that order. And it's basically about her, journey traveling through time and their love story and all that kind of stuff. So I did want to put a quick trigger warning on this video. I will be talking about subjects like assault, sexual assault, rape, all that kind of stuff, because that is heavily discussed in not only the book but the television show. If that is something that triggers you in any way, do not read this book, do not watch that show, and click off this video. So the first problem that I had with this book was just that there were some parts that seemed very unnecessary. I feel like the entire book could have been condensed down a lot further if they had taken out some of these parts. One part, for instance, that comes to mind is when Claire and Jamie run into a pack of wolves, and the entire scene in the book just consists of them looking at these wolves and Claire thinking that she's not scared of them and commenting on how she's not scared of them even though one of them is looking right at her. And I'm not sure if there was a point to this particular scene, and after thinking about it a lot, the only thing that I could come up with is that this might be a metaphor for how Claire is unafraid of this savage beast, as the book sometimes refers to Jamie as. Which brings me to my next problem with this book, which is that Claire thinks of all of these people that she comes into contact with as savages because they don't have a life that's similar to hers, which, no duh, it's 200 years in the past. Things change. But she also talks about how she thinks she can somehow tame the savage that is Jamie. And there are a lot of problems in that, which we will get to in due time. But I'm going to save talking about all of my problems with Jamie, and there are a lot of them, towards the end of the video. Okay, so when Claire first meets Dougal, he says that he does not condone rape, but then later sexually assaults her and threatens to rape her. So you tell me how true that statement was. Also, the other men around Claire that she's always with, they keep patting her on the rump, and she always just takes it with no argument or anything. And I could see, I am scared for what they might do if I were to say something, being the reason why she never says anything, but we don't even get any comment from the narration, from Claire's point of view, of why she might just be putting up with it. Like, there is a problem with somebody putting their hands on you in any way without consent. We can all agree on that? Yes? Great, good. If we can't, get out of my comments right now. So I don't really know what Diana Gabaldon is thinking and how she's managing to excuse that in her mind as acceptable behavior, but we will get into worse. And that kind of brings me to the overall problem that I had with Claire in the book versus Claire in the television show. So Claire in both the book and the television show is characterized as very hard-headed, very stubborn, very confident, and intelligent. But in the book, that does not come across as well at all. She puts up with a lot of stuff that I don't think anybody should ever put up with. It's just completely unacceptable behavior. And we never get any logical explanation as to why she deals with this, so it just comes across as la-di-da, it's whatever. And just in general, there seems to be a lot more telling rather than showing that Claire is intelligent or confident or anything like that. She does seem to be very headstrong in a lot of sense, but doesn't have the intelligence to back up what she's doing, and so it just makes for a character that really pisses you off a lot of the time. And of course, the number one reason that I had a problem with this book is the romance. So I did actually watch the television show before I read the book. I don't usually like to do that, but I had started reading the book a couple years ago, didn't care for it, and then I watched the television show and I loved that, so I went back and tried to read the book. Now we're here. So in the show, I absolutely adore Claire and Jamie's relationship. They are both incredibly headstrong. They are both intelligent, and that makes for some very interesting scenarios that they get themselves into and out of most every time. And through it all, they work together as an equal partnership. Do they agree on everything? Absolutely not, but that's relationships for you. And there is one particular scene that happens in both the book and the movie that was handled so differently that it made me absolutely despise the book and love the show. So at one point, Claire runs away from the spot that she's told Jamie and the others that she will be staying put in because she wants to try and find her way back to her own time and back to her original husband. She then gets captured by the Redcoats. Jamie and the others put their lives in danger to save her, and of course this means that everybody is very, very upset with her, because had she stayed put like they warned that she should do, they wouldn't have been put in that situation. Okay, understandable why everybody's mad. However, Jamie decides that the correct way to handle this is to punish her by beating her, because this is the way that he was taught that things are done. And here is where the difference between the book and the show becomes very apparent. In the show, Claire is understandably livid with him for days. And the only reason that she ends up forgiving him for what he did is because he goes to her and says, "This is the way that I was taught that things are done, but I have come to realize that there are different ways that we can handle this. I will never do this to you again, and I would like to do things different, to do things better." And he sees his mistake, accepts that he's made a mistake, apologizes for it, and then makes better on it. And he makes good on his promise. He never does it again. And he genuinely feels guilty for having done it in the first place. However, in the book, he does not apologize for beating her. He actually refuses to apologize, and she forgives him anyways, which doesn't make sense given what we know about her character, that she's supposed to be, strong-willed and all that kind of stuff. She just forgives him because he tells some childhood stories about times that he got beaten, and she finds them funny, and then they just kind of end the conflict there. However, they still somehow come to the agreement that he won't beat her again, and his reason for agreeing to this doesn't really make any sense because he doesn't really give a reason. But he later jokes that he wished he hadn't made that promise. And this was after Claire accused Jamie of being unfaithful, and instead of beating her, he decides that the way to handle that particular situation is to rape her, which is actually not a thing because he has claim over her because they're married. Newsflash, that's not how any of this works. And then instead of Claire fighting back or whatever, it suddenly somehow turns into her giving consent, and them having just very hot sex, which again is not how any of this works, because that is technically coercion, which means she did not technically give consent, which means that is still rape, and that is unacceptable. And we're supposed to think that somehow this is like really hot and steamy and so romantic and whatever, and it's like, no, this is disgusting, this is horrifying, and I really wish I hadn't just read that. How actually dare you? And it is made very obvious that Jamie wants to own her whether she likes it or not. This is stated quite a few times, along with the lovely line of, James Fraser was not a man to take no for an answer. And there you have the biggest problem of them all, and the reason that I hate this book, and I will not be finishing it, and I will not be reading the rest of them in the series, and why I gave this book 1 star, and why I overall just have no idea why nobody is talking about this. I actually originally wanted to read this book because a booktuber that I watched raved about this series and she absolutely loved it. And yeah, after reading it, I kind of want to have a conversation now and go, but why? Yeah, and I personally think that it is just about damn time that we stop making excuses for rapists. I don't care if it was, 200 years ago and people were just different and they were savages and that kind of stuff. It's unacceptable. Clearly, there were people that didn't rape other people. There were people that knew that that was wrong. If you actually think logically about things and you're an intelligent person that has a moral compass, something that we were told Jamie Fraser was supposed to have, then that doesn't seem like something that he should do. But he did it anyways. So somebody explain this to me, because I don't know what I'm not getting. Or maybe it's what Diana Gabaldon isn't getting, and that is that rape is not sexy. And if you want to write a good romance, you should make the characters two equals that love and respect each other. What a concept. So, yes, I am very aware that things got very heated. If you disagree with me, I really want to know why. I have several questions and then probably several more follow-up questions. So that was my general rant review of this book. And with that, I bid you all adieu.